Hello, everyone. I'm just testing this for a second. I'm going to take these off and take these off. Is that okay? Hi, I'm Phil Martin, and put this way over here so we won't get any feedback. And welcome to Movie Style, and welcome to On Film for July 3rd, 2020. Well, the big news is I went back to the theater. We went back on Sunday afternoon and caught the 4:10 showing of Irresistible at Riverdale 10 in Little Rock. And some of you may know the Riverdale 10's been my theater for a while because when I lived in Hillcrest in Little Rock up until a little over a year ago, it was right down the hill from me. I mean, I could walk there. It took 3 minutes to get there by the car. And we often left, right at the time the screening was going to begin because we knew that there would be enough, coming attractions and everything to get us there on time to see it. So, and I've for whatever reason, it's not a chain theater. It dedicates 4 or 5 of its screens to the type of movies that we might not otherwise get in a place like Little Rock or a place like Arkansas. And I support the independent theater, and I try to, do my best to see the movies I do see, there. That doesn't mean I don't go to the other theaters. I do, but the bulk of the recreational movie going I do always went to the closest theater, and that was the closest theater. It remains the closest theater, I guess. I mean, even though I'm in Little Rock, North Little Rock, across the river, it's just a zoom over the Broadway Bridge and zoom down, and we're there. It takes maybe 7 minutes to get there now, so it's still probably the closest theater to me, and probably where I'd go anyway if the other theaters were open. It has the movies I want to see usually. And I don't care about some things. I mean, it has nice seats and, nice enough amenities, but, I don't really care about having, like at Movie Tavern, which is great. You get supper there in the Alamo, sort of draft house kind of model. But anyway, so we went to Riverdale on Sunday and saw Irresistible. First of all, about the movie, I may have talked about the movie a little bit last week. It's not great. It's a movie. It's a political comedy that's sort of in the mode of Veep, but it's not as sharp and not as cutting. It's probably a little confusing because you need to have this little thing at the end where the characters sort of tell you, they sort of explain the scam they've been running. And whenever you've got to do that, that's probably not the strongest narrative device. Carell is Steve Carell, and Rose Byrne is very good in it, I'll have to say. I enjoyed her performance as a sleazy, right-wing, conservative political consultant, and Steve Carell's a Weasley, Democratic political consultant, and they're fighting over the small town in Wisconsin where Chris Cooper, who's one of my favorite actors, reveals himself as a progressive in conservative clothes, and it looks like the Democrats may be able to exploit him on a national scale. So anyway, it tries real hard. It's written and directed by Jon Stewart, who used to do The Daily Show, and I feel a little bad for Jon Stewart because, he went off and made this movie Rosewater that nobody saw. Sorry. I saw it. It's okay. And he took off, several months from his job at The Daily Show, and that's when John Oliver filled in for him. And John Oliver, kind of took it and ran. Now he has his own show on HBO, which is very smart and is unmissable in my opinion. And so I don't really. I wish John Oliver had done a smarter movie. I mean, there's some parts of this are very good, but there's also some parts of it that are very conventional and care for. I mean, just I'm debating right now and if there's a review of it in this Friday's newspaper, well, I did it, but I'm debating whether to review or not because it's not a major picture. It's already open. It's out. The only reason to write about it really is because I've seen it, and I've just kind of told you about it. So maybe I don't need to write about it, and we can save that space for something else like Hamilton. Okay, I'll get to Hamilton in a minute. Um, but I want to talk about the experience. Well, we went to Riverdale. It was pretty empty. It wasn't completely empty. There was one other person in our screening, and we saw a few people in the halls, but there was no line at the concession stand, no line to get tickets. We greeted the people behind the counter, and we asked them about how things were going, and it was come see, come saw. It was better on Father's Day than it was last weekend. They're starting to get some regulars to come back. People like me who used to go to the theater quite frequently just to, because it was their neighborhood theater. They're starting to come back a little bit. They're observing the social distancing thing. Once you buy a ticket, the seats on either side of you are blocked off. If you buy two tickets together, seats on either side of those two seats are blocked off. They're wiping things down. Everybody that I saw in the theater was wearing a face mask. I can't say that everybody was wearing a face mask, but everybody I noticed was wearing a face mask. And it was neat to go see a movie in a theater. I mean, Irresistible is a film that I wouldn't have watched all the way through on my own dime if I'd have caught it on cable or on Netflix or something like that. But in the theater, it's actually a nice experience. It's just nice to sit there. It's nice to sit there and have actual coming attractions. We saw the trailer for Tenet, which I haven't seen before. And of course, Tenet's been pushed back now another month to the middle of August. But even so, it's nice to think that people are optimistic enough to think that someday we will be going back to the movies. I hope. But it makes me think, it's sort of like, what if we don't? What if we don't go back to the movies? I mean, we're missing this. I wrote a piece for the Sunday Style section, not for my section because I'm a team player, but for the Sunday Style section about going back to the theaters and theaters that my life in theaters basically, because they start out, and I'm old enough to remember, just barely, when just about every little town had this, kind of movie palace, had this, downtown movie theater that was kind of Baroque. They had the painted ceilings and they had the guild and the prosceniums and all this stuff. And I remember those kind of things. And I had the good fortune, I guess, to grow up in Southern California where I got to see a lot of really nice theaters when I was a kid. My dad would take me to see cowboy movies, and he would take me to see war movies. The Dirty Dozen's one I remember. The Matt Helm movies, which I've talked about before. Any Dean Martin movie, Western, John Wayne, those sorts of things. We saw them all, and I saw Rosemary's Baby at a drive-in. I saw a few movies at a drive-in. Rosemary's Baby was a drive-in when I was 10 years old. Not a good idea, but, we did it. I saw The Green Slime in a theater in Georgia. House of Wax. I saw it in a little town called Pembroke, Georgia, would have one of these really nice theaters. And by the time I got into high school, sort of those theaters were going away. There were a few still downtown. I mean, downtown Shreveport had a couple of, one or two screen theaters, downtown that were kind of seedy. They hadn't gone over to being porn theaters like a lot of them did, but they were still around. And I remember seeing films there. I saw The Exorcist downtown Shreveport. That's right. I saw The Exorcist, and I can't think of the name of the theater, but it wasn't the grand one. It was one that was a little bit less fancy. I saw Apocalypse Now in a one of the brand new kind of antiseptic boxes that they were putting up in starting in the mid 70s. The multiplexes that kind of looked like a place where you'd go to give blood or something, or they were sometimes they were gaudier than that, and they had this was I think a 4-screen theater that I went to see Apocalypse Now and sit in the front row. And that's kind of what we had. We had those kind of things attached to the mall all through the 80s. The mall, multiplexes, 32 screens, things like that. And, about 20 years ago, we started seeing movie theaters evolve again to offering more amenities and being, stadium seating, the big seats, the food got improved. I didn't even talk about the theaters I used to go to in Phoenix, the Harkins chain, which was a really nice local chain there that had kind of a couple of art houses and a couple of, well, probably more than a couple of major, kind of more mainstream theaters. And they were just gorgeous, and you could get brownies there, and you could get a beer there, and you could get coffee there. And that was just so great. And, now every place, Riverdale, you can get a drink, you can get beer, you get wine. The movie tavern, you can get food. Every place is offering all this enhanced experiential stuff. And, I guess that's great because, we can see all the movies we want to at home on our 55, which is modest. My screen is 55 inches. That's very modest, but I have a small house and a small room. It's plenty big enough, believe me. And a nice sound system. And it's nice to be able to sit here and drink your own wine and liquor and eat your own food, pop your own popcorn. It's cheaper. And, you're going to probably be paying for some sort of cable package, some sort of streaming package anyway. So, why not, stay home? So we're already seeing that before this COVID stuff hit. And then the COVID stuff basically makes us stay home and kind of get used to this sort of lifestyle. Like tonight, our big deal for this week, our big deal is to go and get takeout. We're going to get takeout tonight. I've been looking forward to it for, a few days now. Not because the takeout's any better than what I would eat normally, but just because it's an adventure to get in the car, and we'll put the girls in the car. And see, nobody came up here with me today. This is getting old to them. We'll put them in the car. We'll go get takeout. And we'll come home. We'll pour glasses of wine. We'll sit and we'll watch something on, I don't know, Amazon Prime or Netflix or HBO. Perry Mason, that's a good one. If you're not watching it, that's the tip of the week, Perry Mason. And then we'll just, veg out here. We enjoy each other's company. We enjoy our house, our sound system, and it's very easy to get comfortable. And I think that that's going to play into the dynamic because theaters are going to come back at some point, but we don't know when, and we don't know how safe it's going to be. We don't have, and I don't have any real clear clue how many people are going to want to go back to the theater right away. Maybe you want to wait till there's a vaccine. Maybe you want to wait until the theater's not practicing the social distancing. You don't have to wear a mask. I don't know when that's going to be. And I'm sad because I think that we're going to be in an altered world when we come out of this. I mean, a lot of things are going to close. I mean, just the economics of it is such that you're not going to have everybody stay open and everybody come roaring back. A lot of restaurants are gone. A lot of bars are gone. A lot of clubs are gone. Some theaters are going to be gone. And I hate to see that experience disappear. In the 30s, everybody went to the movies. Everybody went to the movies every week. That's why you have these outrageous, when you adjust them for inflation, box office totals and numbers of people who saw Gone with the Wind. Of course, Gone with the Wind didn't open on a weekend. It rolled out slowly, and it took 6 months to get to your town. Maybe it took a year to get to your town. And you knew it was coming eventually, but it didn't open on all these 5,000 screens, right away. It opened here and then moved slowly across the country. And movies were the lingua franca of our culture. I mean, that was the stuff that everybody could talk about. That was what everybody knew. It wasn't pop music then. It wasn't what was on the nightly news then. It was the movies. They were a much bigger part of America in the 30s and 40s and 50s than they are now. We still treat them with this respect, with sort of this residual respect, but I don't know that they've actually earned it anymore, because I think that, even though I don't know anything about them, I think that probably video games are as important in the scheme of things as movies are now. Certainly, Netflix, Amazon Prime, the stuff that's running on these cable channels, I still call them cable channels, but on these streaming services. I mean, that's more important than the movies. We don't have any sort of common, reservoir of cultural stuff now. Everybody's it's all balkanized. Everybody does their own little thing. And that's great in a way. But it's the same with our, the bad effects are we're losing ways to talk to each other. That's the trouble with our politics now. Our politics is so balkanized, you can go find your flavor, your channel, and you can attend to it, and you never have to pay attention to anything that upsets you. So, you don't. And, it's just understandable. You seek out the lever that gives you the pill that you like, the flavor you like. You just keep pressing the lever. And you're not going to press the lever for the stuff that's supposed to be good to you, the broccoli, the lettuce, the spinach. You're not going to press that lever. You're going to keep hitting the red meat. Me too. I mean, my job sort of, involves me keeping up with stuff and reading, 5 newspapers and lots of magazine articles and, actively seeking out information on a daily basis. That's my job. If it weren't my job, I'd find it very easy to relax into one of these, cocoons, silos, whatever you want, a bubble, whatever you want to call it. I would feel pretty, safe doing that. I could watch sports. Well, there are no sports, but if there were sports, I could watch sports all day. I could listen to, music all day. I don't because my livelihood is wrapped up in not doing that. I haven't watched TV news, and I'm serious, since the 80s, when I didn't have a television. The only time I'd watch it then was when I'd go into the office and watch it, because I wanted to make sure that they didn't have anything that we didn't have. That was back when I was a cop reporter. And we watched it a little bit after 9/11. We watched CNN after 9/11 religiously right after that, just because we couldn't turn off the pecking to get the stuff we were craving, which, I think a lot of us had that problem then. But other than that, I don't watch TV news. I have good friends who work in TV who I've only incidentally seen. I've been on television news more often than I've watched it in the past 35 years. People can't believe that. They can't believe I haven't picked between Fox, MSNBC, CNN, or whatever. I haven't. You don't have to. And you don't have to choose to be, involved with the movies either if you don't want to. It's all an act of volition these days. It used to be you took what you got. You had 3 channels. You had Walter Cronkite. You had David Brinkley. You took what you got. You had one movie opening in the town theater this week and maybe another one next week, and you went to see that movie. You went to see the next movie, and you went to see the movie after that, because that's what there was. Now you have, 4,000 choices right available at your fingertips. I mean, I'm scrolling through the Sundance, now app, looking at stuff I want to watch. Swedish crime dramas and things like that. So, I don't know. I mean, it just seems to me like there is there's a utility in having common civic ritual where people of all types, of all stripes, of all races, beliefs, creeds, and colors, and all that come together for whatever reason. And I think sitting in the dark with strangers, watching lights on a wall, and listening to a soundtrack and attending to this story that they're teaching you, that they're telling you, like that's the campfire on the wall. I think there's use for that. I mean, I really do think we've lost something if we all decide to split up and just go into our own little cubby holes and do what we want. It's good to come together in these ways. And the movies is one of the ways that we come together. Now, does that mean we have to have them? No, of course not. I mean, I suspect we're not going to... If we have maybe, 50 screens, 55 screens in the Little Rock, North Little Rock area right now. After this COVID thing, I don't know, maybe we'll have 30. Which will make a difference because most of those 30 screens will show the same 5 movies. And that's fine. But that means there'll be fewer channels for these other movies, except that they are going to move on to streaming platforms. They're going to be vaporized and aerosoled, and you're going to have to seek them out. It's great if you're somebody who likes to seek this stuff out because it's out there and you can find it. But what we're writing about, look at what we're writing about in Movie Style this week. We're writing about movies that in a normal summer wouldn't have any oxygen. You wouldn't hear about them. You would hear about the next Iron Man, Iron Man 6, or whatever. You'd hear about the next, Batman movie. You'd hear about all these, James Bond. You'd hear about the great summer inevitable movies. And those are fine. I mean, who doesn't like those? Some of them I don't like, but there's nothing wrong with sitting in a theater, enjoying the air conditioning and a cold drink and popcorn and watching the Battle of the Titans or whatever. I don't have a problem with that. I do wish that there was some way that we could mainstream adult, not in that I don't mean it as a euphemism, but as grown-up entertainment. Movies for people like me who don't attend religiously to the MCU or the DCU, who don't, really care for the Fast and the Furious movies. If you do, that's fine. All I'm saying is that we're losing stuff, and if the movies just become a place where you go and see the bang bang roar shoot 'em up bang stuff, well, that's what they'll become. And we've already seeded a lot of it over to this demographic, this sort of immature demographic, this 12 to 45-year-olds who want to be 12 sort of thing. And like I said, there's nothing, I am not Martin Scorsese here to tell you that you're doing anything wrong by caring a whole lot about Iron Man. All right? I don't think that's true. I do think that, we are gradually losing the binding elements of our society. And the movies are one of those. And I would like the movies to stick around. And I would like the movies to stick around as something other than a place where you go see the big bang whiz, shoot 'em up, boom, films. I would like films like Irresistible, which admittedly isn't a great movie and isn't even particularly well done in some ways. But it's got a sensibility and it's aimed at a demographic that I think is becoming underserved. Serious people. And I don't mean serious in the grumpy serious way. I just mean that it's a movie that's supposed to be a comedy, but it's a comedy about serious stuff that maybe you ought to think about. Boy, I sound old even to myself. Anyway, this week's drama in the world of movie style is Hamilton. Disney was supposed to send me a link to Hamilton. I haven't got the link to Hamilton. So there will be no review of Hamilton in this week's movie style. I don't know what to tell you. We do have it on the cover of our TV book, I understand. And there's a story in, I think, Thursday about it. But we will have no review of Hamilton unless I chicken out and run a wire review, which I still could do. I might run a review of Hamilton next week after it's been out for 7 days. But that's what I'm doing with Irresistible if I run the Irresistible review. So I don't know. I don't know. What we're always trying to do is we're trying to balance reader interest with what we perceive as the importance of a given film. Now, I don't think, and I could be wrong, I don't think Hamilton is all that important. Because it's been here, it's been around, a lot of people know about it. You can go buy the soundtrack album. You will be able to see it whenever you want to see it. By the time you hear me talking about it, you'll be able to see it whenever you want. No matter what I say about it as a critic, it's not going to have much impact on who watches it, who doesn't watch it. Fair? Okay. At the same time, people expect us to write about Hamilton because it's the big thing this weekend. And I don't know how to really balance these things because I come up from a tradition of what we call editor-driven newspapering or editor-driven publications, where editors, people like me, decide what we're going to write about and what we're going to put in the newspaper. It's not driven by, focus groups or public opinion polls or just, what people write in and call and send their cards and letters expressing interest in. It is curated content. That's what we try to do, curated content. But there might be something interesting to say about Hamilton. There really might be. I think there is. I haven't seen it. I can't say anything about it until I have seen it. Disney didn't let me see it, even though they promised me they would. And probably by the time this hits the iPad app, because some of you know you can see it early if you know the secret. By the time